see,
Here we
you
are.
see.
Look at us.
Yes, I look.
We are
I
on
look battered.
television.
I look battered and
Do you?
henpecked.
No, you don't.
Yes, I was
No.
perfectly all right until
Look
you
at
got here.
you. Look at you. Stop
Here she
moaning.
is, is the walking bombshell herself, Liza Page.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you.
Now, Liza, I was interested because the some of the local planning applications and some of the things that particularly I'm not picking on the Greens, but the people of green persuasion is I was amazed to see that they were propagating the 15-minute.
The Greens.
Yeah, I think it was.
What, this
the
little
Greens.
lot in town here?
Well, no, I mean it's a much wider.
But no, they are for these cities. Oh no!
well,
Don't tell me that.
Don't jump the gun.
Oh,
Right. What I'm saying is that there was a development plan for a new development or something, in which they said the idea was that everything would be within striking distance, which
within
seems to fit in
15-minute
exactly
radius.
your 15-minute plan. So this concept, I mean, they weren't talking about a city necessarily, but they were talking about a community. Is this concept seems to be far more widespread than I thought.
Well,
Now-
I did
now-
tell you, Keith. I did tell
Well,
you. darling.
look, don't tell me. Those are the people that need to be out there.
Well, every time I've come on here, I've talked about these 15-minute cities.
Right, and what have I said to you?
And how terribly serious
Yes.
they are.
I keep on reminding you because you've got to remind people what it's all about.
Well,
Yeah,
I
go
will
on.
remember. all
What's
the time
first? Tell everybody
in
what
my
the 15-minute city is about.
what it consists of. It's what they're doing is they are breaking up towns into 15-minute radiuses, like in blocks, where they call them 15-minute cities, which means you have, they say, everything you need within a 15-minute radius. Like your hairdressers, your doctors, your hospital, your school, a little playground for the kiddies, maybe a park on top of the houses. But you are not allowed to, if you've got a car, you are not allowed to drive in this city unless you take your car and get it registered with the council and get a permit to leave the city. Now then, you are only allowed to leave in your car for 100 hours a year. Now, 52 weeks in a year, that's less than 2 hours a week, isn't it? Huh? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go too far, can you? If you go over that, every hour that you go over, you will have to pay £70 an hour. So if you go to visit someone and a cup of tea, nice little chat, if it's a good-looking fella, time goes very quickly, doesn't it? And for a gentleman, if it's a pretty girl, time speeds.
Okay, Liza, what is the purpose of these 15-minute towns?
They are nothing more than holding cities. That's what they are, Keith.
I mean, what do you mean by holding
cities? Means prison.
Why would some group in our society that presumably has the authority and power to develop these cities, why would they want to imprison us?
To control people, so that when they bring in their next pandemic, zoom, within 3 minutes, those cities are tightly locked, just the way they are in China.
But when you said bring in the next pandemic, what do you mean by that?
Well, Gates says that we're very much under his influence at the moment.
Now, who's Gates?
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates,
and Schwab.
Right.
We're very much, controlled by them at the moment because our king has signed us away to them. So they can do these group of unelected people, which call themselves the WEF and the WHO, World Health Organization, World Economic Forum. These people are now controlling the world.
Yes. Okay. Now, you would in many instances you would say to the man out in the street, the World Health Organization, and he was, oh yes. He would broadly approve of it.
We wouldn't have a clue.
No, exactly. But let's find out what the lacking the clue is in a minute. And if you actually said the World Economic Forum, most people wouldn't even know anything about that at all, because it's a very high level. Yes. And it's tucked away in the Swiss mountains. Now, having said that, these two organizations exist. They have managed to get an aura of respectability around them. Why do you say that these are the heartland of something sinister, something that we must be very aware of?
Because every single one of these people are into eugenics.
What's eugenics?
Cultivating the population, cutting down on the population.
Oh, right.
Yes. Very, very strongly, every single one of them are into cutting down on the population of the world. And they are highly into all these vaccinations, which they want to bring in so many of them. I mean, Gates, what was it, a couple of months back said, don't take this vaccine anymore. It doesn't do any good. Leave that one out. We got a new one coming out. You just spray it on your tongue. Yeah. Lot of adverse effects with these vaccines, as I'm very sure a lot of people out there are aware of. A frightening amount of deaths, illnesses, that even the hospitals are crowded because they don't know how to deal with it. They haven't got a clue.
All right. Now, once again, most people would say out there is, oh my goodness me, vaccines and so on and so forth, they've been developed to help us and keep us safe and so on and so forth. So what's your answer to that?
My answer is that these were not tested properly. They were brought on far too soon. I mean, it takes a minimum of 20 years to develop even a semi-safe vaccine, and these were thrust onto the market with no intention of helping people at all.
Right. So basically, what you're really saying is that these people would want to establish control.
Totally.
And so that must be for some peculiar mindset.
Well, yes, the mindset is for every single person on this planet to be microchipped so that they can transform the human being the way it is today into a very different human being with the aid of these microchips.
Okay. Now, what is the overall objective of this? What if you had to say in one sentence, this is what they're aiming for? What would you say?
Depopulation.
Depopulation.
Yes.
Why?
They say there's too many people on the planet. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Now,
and the elderly should go, because they call us useless eaters. We're taking up space. We're not working.
Oh, these are the people I've just been having a go at for other reasons. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Not very nice people.
Not at all sympathetic to people over 35 like me.
Well, exactly. You know, I mean, a mere toddler like yourself, they want to exterminate. No, you know, I think you're rather a nice person to have walking around the planet.
I think he's a nice person.
You know,
I think you're a nice person.
It's just,
I mean, you know.
That's the first time she's ever paid me a compliment.
And it's on telly. It's on telly.
It's on telly too. Why did you come and join us?
Oh, I'm meant to be working.
Oh, there's Kevin.
Hello.
Yes, we just break for a moment because Kevin is one of the background support team that really look after us.
He's a lovely man.
Yeah,
isn't he?
he makes sure if anything goes wrong, is when we're having difficulty with the internet. He made sure we got a cable. It's cut down on the problems. It looks better than it did, and not only that, but he gives me my beer on a Tuesday morning.
Oh, well, then he's a really good fella. Nothing wrong with him.
But Liza, I mean, in some ways, he represents the sort of people that you worry about because I came in yesterday morning and I shouted out, "Hello, beautiful," thinking that I was talking to Shannon, and it was Sally, the owner of the hotel.
Well, I'm sure
but she
thought that was
she
lovely.
forgave me. Yeah, but I have to say, right from Sally on down, through the girls and so on, we have a wonderful backup staff.
Well, and isn't it very kind of them to let us come in here and rant and rave the
Yeah,
way we do? I think
absolutely.
We love it.
it's very
Yeah.
nice of them.
And to make us feel so welcome.
I mean, this beautiful, lovely, old hotel, you know. I mean, it's the only one left now, isn't it?
Well,
Yes.
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Shelley's is shut down, isn't it?
And
Yes,
we used
it
to have
is.
the Crown, that's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very sad. In fact, there's nothing here anymore.
Right, anyway,
Nothing.
I best go because I've got to
Why?
go and move my ladders and do some more work.
Why, we
All right.
we
I
like
know,
you.
but-
It's good to see
I get
you.
5 minutes.
And I have to say that Kevin has got a very good apprenticeship program because he brings in his grandson Ollie.
I've met Ollie.
Yeah,
He's a lovely,
and,
charming little boy. Yes.
Kevin has got a lazy streak to him. He says, Ollie, you get on with it, and then he goes and has a snooze.
Cup of tea, not a snooze. Cup of tea.
Yeah, well, I remember with my family, we asked Daddy to do something. That's it, kill the old ones off first.
Right.
I'll let you get back to your
All
project.
right.
Sorry, Lisa.
Good to see you, Kevin, as always.
Have a good morning.
And in fact, of course, the thing is about stories is that it is a wise man once said to me, you know, Keith, and this is when I was a young journalist and still learning the trade. He said, Keith, every story is conflict. It's good versus bad, nature versus man, etc., etc.
Uh-huh.
And then it is nice that what we've got is able to sit here and talk about a very serious thing and just bring in a nice bit of humanity for a moment or two.
Absolutely. To let people know that for the moment, only for the moment, we are still human.
Right. Now, one of the things that I know is you actually sometimes go till 3 o'clock in the morning and you rush off and you buy books and tapes and so on because you are so committed to exposing, or what you would say is exposing this alternative group that you do a lot of research. And I know that you've been working very hard this week, very hard. So start to tell us the sort of things that you've been looking at.
Well, one of the most important and encouraging things that I have seen was that Anthony Bridgen, is it? Do I get the name right?
I think so,
Bridgen,
yes.
Isn't it?
The
Marvelous.
MP, yeah.
Yes, marvelous man who stood up and said that, listen, these injections really have to be investigated. And they took no notice of him.
Now, when you say stand up where?
Stood up in Parliament.
In Parliament, right? Okay. Yeah.
And to an empty room.
Yeah,
Yes, on
yeah.
such an important subject like that. When he had thousands of people, you know, get in there and do it. Took so long to get him in there to give this request, and nobody wanted to pay any attention at all. I think there were 3 or 4 people, no more. Our little politician down here who stood up and said, well, I'm an ex-nurse, and I think these injections have saved lives. And that was all the comment that she had. And when he said, now, what about the fact that they are going to inject 6-year-old children with these injections? I hadn't heard anything about that. I'll investigate. Wouldn't you have thought she would have gone in well prepared for what the man was going to talk about, huh?
One would think, but you know my view about politicians generally is that they're bloody useless lot. So I'm not surprised that.
But not useless, darling. They're dangerous.
You can be
dangerous
useless and
people.
dangerous. In fact,
in their
to
uselessness,
be quite
they're
honest with
dangerous.
you, exactly, the more useless you are, the more dangerous you become because you've still got the authority and the power.
This is it.
Right.
This is it. Anyway, Andrew stood up again. I think it was in the last 3 days in Parliament, and said this WHF and the WHO, this organization that has been voted in by Charles and the government, is highly dangerous. These people, you were given these people the authority to do anything they want.
Okay, now let's examine everything as we go along. As you say, you say that our government and our king have voted in the WHO, but
Yes.
the WHO is a big global organization. It's not even centered here. So what do you mean?
Health Organization.
Yes, but what do you mean?
The WHO.
Yes, but why do you say it's our government and our king that's voted him in?
Well,
because they don't have that power.
Well, apparently they do, because I was appalled when the king signed the petition to say that they had authority in this country. And you corrected me.
Right, yeah.
Corrected me, and you said that the government must have given them authority before the king sanctioned this.
Yeah. He gives royal assent to everything after it's all been done and dusted, and it's put there for his signature.
Yes.
He can, under extreme circumstances, it happens once every decade, I think, refuse to sign. But generally speaking, it is a rubber stamp deal. Yeah.
Well, he signed up because he's been great buddies with these people for a long time. And for a man who claims to be into organic food, etc., I mean, he's done a total return, because these people are into injecting animals with the mRNA vaccination, which is proved to be defective, and the plants too.
Is it super
So
foods?
we'll be getting our vaccinations through the food that we eat.
Right.
And they
is
are
this what's known as
responsible.
superfoods?
Hmm?
Is this what's known as superfoods?
I don't know what it's known as. In my book, it's poison.
Right.
But GM foods, that's what they're called.
Right.
GM
Right. Okay,
foods.
Now,
And
I know we're on the
also,
same
Gates manufactures the GM seeds, and he's making it a law that nobody can grow anything unless they're with these seeds.
Explain that.
Yeah, explain that.
Yes. But
Now
can you explain that?
Explain it?
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's if I want to plant an ear of corn in my backyard.
You won't be allowed to do that.
Right. I have to get permission.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. And you won't even be able to grow mint or parsley on your windowsill, the way lots of people
I mean,
like to do that.
Liza, you actually are painting a pretty frightening future for mankind.
It's a perpetually frightening future. It is based on the Chinese policy. The Chinese policy is the blueprint for what they want to bring in here.
Right.
Totally. I think it's even more so, quite frankly.
Okay. And broadly, what's the Chinese policy?
What they're bringing in. I mean, everybody locked up. I mean, we have more surveillance in Britain than anywhere else in the world. We are most surveyed country. And now they want to go even further. When you work from home, you will have cameras in your home checking you morning. They will know every single thing about you. There will be a digital system, no money, a digital payment system. And people will think, well, that's all right, that'll do. But you only get that with stipulations. That will be mandatory vaccinations. And when you go into a store, it's on a point system. If you've bought a steak, say, twice a week, no, you can't do that. And if you jaywalk, they will know it, and they will take off a point. If you criticize the government in any shape or form, you will lose a hell of a lot of points. In fact, you will be taken to what they call a rehabilitation center, and you won't come out until you say 2 and 2 make 5.
Right.
I'm sure you've read 1984,
Oh,
but we have long surpassed 1984.
yes.
With
I mean,
our technology.
is actually when television first came in the 1950s, one of the first dramas that they had was Orwell's 1984.
Yes, very frightening.
And it was pretty
film.
frightening. Yeah, yeah.
We've surpassed that.
Yeah.
Surpassed that.
As I recall, they identified that he was afraid of rats.
Yes.
And they put his head in the things with the rats. Yes.
Very, very
Yes.
scary. Awful, horrific thing.
Yes, yes.
And
Okay.
but these cities, you see, these 15-minute cities are nothing more than control, because they want to know every single thing about what you do.
Okay.
And anytime they choose, well, there's a hurricane or there's this, close the city down immediately. Close it down. Let nobody out. Like they were sealing people up in China through the pandemic there.
Right.
And big fire, couldn't get out, whole bit. A lot of people killed. No, these are very frightening people, Keith, and they have to be stopped. Now then, back to Tony Bridgen stood up in Parliament several days ago and said everything, more or less, that I am saying about these organizations, the WHO and the WEF. And he said these people got it wrong in the last pandemic through their injections, they're this, that, and the other, and we cannot have them in our country. I mean, the man was magnificent, and the people around him,
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't up. Come on, let's hear what he's got to say. I mean, it was ridiculous. Anyway, he did his piece, and you know what they did? They took him off YouTube.
Really?
Yes. So he said they've taken me off YouTube. So I have put myself on Brumble.
Yes. I mean, I must confess is the power that YouTube and Facebook have to put people on and off. But in fairness, they are commercial operations. They're not provided by the state. So it's if you had a shop, you can decide who comes into that shop and who's not. It's your shop.
Yeah, but YouTube's owned by this lot.
Yeah. But I mean,
it
is commercial.
The same as they own the journalists.
They own what?
The journalists.
Now, you be careful when you say the journalists, because they don't own me, and they don't own anybody on this television station.
No, they don't. You are the exception to the rule, Keith. Exception
well,
to
I think
the
there are
rule.
a few more that are feisty
when
enough to
do you
fight.
ever hear talk radio mention Klaus Schwab or Bill Gates or this organization, which is so? When do they ever give them a mention? Never.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I'm sure.
I called them up at the beginning of the pandemic, and I said that these masks are useless. It's just a thing to make money, and they're preventing people from taking oxygen, breathing.
Right.
And they would never let me on again. Tried to get through.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's the people who give out the licenses to media, terrestrial media, the people that you say are trying to establish control. So I'm not surprised at that at all. It doesn't surprise me. What I do find difficult is maybe I've been a bit of a Boy Scout, But I've roamed the world trying to train journalists, including those in Russia, by the way,
I know.
on what
Yes.
is an impartial view
Uh-huh.
of looking at things. And it would appear that I'm beating my gums, as the Jamaicans would say. There's no point because journalism isn't going to be open. It isn't going to be
No.
impartial. It isn't going to be fair.
No. All I can hope and pray is little stations like yourself, Keith, that we will have a certain value until they destroy us.
Well,
but meanwhile, we're doing our best.
Right. Okay, let's move on. What else have you been studying this week?
Oh dear. Yes. It's pretty much, dear. You get your vaccines through eating. The idea of eating vaccine technology through plants and animals is not new. Transhumans and technocrats have been intent on taking over all genetic material on Earth since at least 1992. With the advent of the Sustainable Development and Agenda 21, where the term biodiversity was redefined as genetic manipulation. American attorney Tom Renz, in an eye-opening interview with Dr. Naomi Wolf, said they have been working on integrating these vaccines into our food supply for at least 2 decades.
Right.
Okay.
So we've been taking it without knowing it.
Without knowing it, yes. Zelensky and entourage embezzled at least $400 million from U.S. aid sent to Ukraine, Seymour Hersh reports. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, together with senior officials and 35 generals, embezzled what the CIA estimates is at least $400 million in U.S. aid funds meant to buy diesel fuel for the Ukrainian army. Famed investigative Seymour Hersh reports Zelensky's entourage reportedly lived lives of opulence, driving very flash motor cars. And
so those are part of their rewards.
yes. One here, Daily Skeptic. Double pregnancy lost rate, raised fetal abnormality rate, and concentration of lipid nanoparticles in ovaries. How could they call this vaccine safe? The mRNA vaccines were released globally in early 2021 with the slogan safe and effective. Unusually, for a new class of medicine, they were recommended by public health authorities for pregnant women. By late 2021, working-aged women, including those who were pregnant, were being thrown out of employment for not agreeing to be injected. Those who took the mRNA vaccines did so based on trust in health authorities. The assumption being that they would not have been approved if the evidence was not absolutely clear. The role of regulatory agencies was to protect the public and therefore if they were approved, the drugs were safe. Obviously, they weren't. Okay. Right, listen, I can go on with this, but I've had enough.
No, it's very important.
I'm so interested in what Bridgeton had to say,
Right.
and that he's had to go on Rumble to
Right.
be
Now,
to show the whole thing.
This Rumble isn't. I'm not familiar with. Tell us about Rumble.
It's an alternative channel that will take people who have been banned.
Ah, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you can show your work and discuss.
Right. Like us.
It's a very, very valuable channel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I must take a look at it. I mean, I don't know that I would see it identified. I mean, my view with this channel is that we will let any point of view, as long as, and I said this to our new acquisition, Dick Barton, the lovely man, is
I haven't had the pleasure of
barrister.
meeting him
Oh,
yet.
oh, you will. Never mind.
I hope so.
He's a barrister. He practices across the road, but he was saying the other day that. And I can't remember what he was saying the other day now because I've talked myself out of it. But basically, you were saying that. I know. I was saying to him that the only things that I will not permit on here is obscenity and libel. You know, if somebody wants to say about me, he looks like a man who would beat his wife and kick the cat, they can do that because I don't care. But you can't say that about somebody else who's sitting here, for instance.
No, I appreciate that, but I tell you something.
Whoa!
Shut up. I am frightened to death to talk to anybody in the street. I really am, for fear of saying the wrong thing, and I can go to prison for the rest of my life for saying it. Now, all these rules, you know, I'm offended by that. And I don't understand all this, Keith. I'm sorry. I do not understand. I'm an old woman. I find it very hard to learn new things. But these nonsensical rules that they have brought out, like you can no longer say mother and father. It's your parents now. And all this stuff. I'm sorry, Keith.
Yes. Okay.
If they want to lock me up, go ahead and do
it. That, to me, is at the moment is put at the feet of the woke generation.
I don't even understand what woke is.
No, I don't
I don't
either.
understand the word or what they're about. I haven't got the faintest idea, and I don't choose to learn.
I will say this. I will say this about our prime minister. I mean, he's a politician, so therefore, you know where I stand on politicians. But he did actually have a go the other day and said that he wanted to see the power these wokes have managed to accumulate for themselves curbed. So I don't know whether perhaps quietly you're going to start to get a convert in the prime minister.
I'm sorry, my life isn't long enough to even listen to him.
I don't want to hear that negative thought.
What he's saying.
I looked in my crystal ball. You're going to last until you're 125.
I hope so, but I hope I last the way I am. And these people, these politicians, I mustn't allow them to pollute my brain.
Right.
I'm very, very careful who I talk to and who I mix with. And those caliber of people, I'm sorry, I cannot take them on board.
Right.
I'm
but
very sorry.
I think,
these people, they make the promises. I mean, they're lying through their teeth. Yes. Everybody knows it. And, you know, I don't want to look at them. I don't want to listen to them. I mean, and as for the king, I mean, for his promises, he couldn't even keep a promise to his wife.
Yes, I mean, I do appreciate that, and I think that a lot of people are still feel very sensitive about that. But I think one of the things that I would say if I was, I mean, you have this forum and you could say what you like on this channel for this hour. But one of the things I would say that I would feel very carefully about is if I say that the politicians are a useless bunch. And I had a real go at some local politicians yesterday. And actually, Stuart Dolby came in and he had a go at them too. And what we did was we made it very clear is, listen, this is the situation as we understand it. We give you the right to come back and have a go at us and say, okay, look, you've expressed this. Now, this is our stance. And I think that
did they come back?
Not yet. They haven't.
I don't think they will.
No, but then we've highlighted a couple of things which we are not absolutely sure that they haven't broken the election law already.
Good for you.
But I mean that's our job. Our role is as a watchdog. Is a watchdog to absolutely everybody, and that includes you. And that's why this hour is such a fascinating hour, because I play devil's advocate. I try to get you to explain things to make sure that people understand where you come from.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's important for everybody. But I try to, because I, as you well know, and I say this, but I think that you would agree, I don't have an ism in my body. Isms are just out of the window. I accept everybody just as they are. If I've got a fault, according to the specialists and so on, it's that I'm a meritocrat. And people say, hang on, don't make meritocracy a king either, because you can say, hey, he is the best for the job, right? Absolutely superb. So you bring him in, and then he turns out to be a wife beater. Just because he's good at his job, you just got to be a little bit careful how you push any particular thing. So, but basically, I'm a meritocrat, and I believe that we must find the best people for the job. And it does seem to me that in you propounding some of the things to try and stop what you see as an evil is you would take a little bit the same point of view. Is that if you're going to get people to fight it, you've got to get people who know what they're doing. For instance, the
and they
MP
can't unless they're educated to know what is happening. But I just find the ignorance pitiful out there. And also, people are very frightened, Keith. They're frightened. You know, I mean, I state some of my views, and people have said to me, I know you're right. I know you're right. Doesn't say anything. And they run away.
Yeah.
I mean, because we are controlled by fear.
Yes, that's true.
Like the church controls by fear. And I think that's wrong.
Yeah. Well, I don't scare easily, as you well know. So therefore, nobody chases anybody out of my studios. Anyway, are there other things that you want to bring to our attention?
Can't think of it now. So as soon as I get outside the door, I should have said that to Keith. You know, I should have brought up that. Listen, you for a change, you tell me. What are the Green Party up to in this town? Well,
I mean, I'm not, once again, I'm not picking on the Green Party because my stance, my personal stance, and as a consequence, because I own this television station, it's the television station's stance, is that they are all as useless as one another. And my belief is we should not have party politics in local government. There shouldn't be Greens, and there shouldn't be Conservatives, and there shouldn't be Social Democrats or Liberal Democrats or whatever they call themselves. None of that should exist. What we should have is a whole bunch of people who want to do the best for their community and they stand as independents.
I agree wholeheartedly.
That's my stance.
Yeah.
So I don't want anybody to get the idea that I'm against the Greens. I'm against them only because they are a political party, and I'm against all political parties.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, strangely enough, people say to me, "Well, Keith, you've got to have some sort of form." No, you don't, because as I point out, I lived in a wonderful community, a wonderful society, from 1958 until 1990, a city called Vancouver, which was run by 7 aldermen, and who were loosely called the Non-Partisan Association. And they had a communist and a right-winger and people in between, all of whom figured things out for the best that they could for the community.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I had a drink with Norman Baker the other day, and I said to Norman, and I wasn't flattering him because I really believe this, I said, I've only known 3 politicians that I believe are honest and trustworthy in my life. One was a lady called Grace McCarthy, who was the Deputy Prime Minister of British Columbia during that period. Number 2 was Betty Boothroyd, who was the Speaker in the House of Commons, who could be a difficult lady, but she was straight down the line. She believed in what she stood for, and she fought for it. And the 3rd was Norman, who is well, you approve of him because he's odd.
I like Norman very much. He's a very nice man.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry he's was treated so badly at the end of his career.
Well, I think
it was a great pity because he stood up for people, and he was a very, very good politician.
I mean, all politicians know that they stand a chance of being booted out.
But it was that awful woman, Theresa May, who never did like Norman. And he had to sit there in Parliament with her. It was just gave up. I can't blame him. Can't blame him at all. I hope he's happy now.
Right. It is 11:15, and have you got other things that you would like to impart?
I would just beg of you to, if you got a computer, get onto Rumble and
spell that, will you?
Rumble.
Rumble, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
On there.
As in Rumble in the Jungle.
Rumble in the Jungle.
Yes.
Yeah. Get on and watch the Anthony Bridgen speech, please. I beg of you, watch that.
Can you tell me what party is Bridgen in?
What part?
Which party?
He's conservative.
He's conservative.
Yeah.
Does he still have the conservative whip, or have they thrown him out?
Well, they did take it away to punish him for making that speech about the vaccinations.
Right.
Oh, he was punished for that.
Right. But he's back in the fold now.
Back in the fold,
right.
Yeah. And I don't know if he will be after what he said there, but it was a brilliant speech and it was so spot on.
Well, the whole idea of our parliamentary system, one of the things is that if you actually make statements in the House of Commons, you can say what the hell you like, and the parliamentary privilege.
Can you?
Well, he did, didn't he? Yeah.
But I mean, it took a long time to get him in there for him to be allowed to stand up and say all that. When he first went in with the vaccinations, I mean, hundreds of people signed that petition for him to send him in there, well armed with this information. And he turned around and he said something like, this is becoming like Nazi Germany. And he said that is an insult to the Jewish people. That was the excuse that they made for banning.
I personally get very twitchy when people start to throw Nazism around, because I think that there was a particularly evil part of our society, and I don't necessarily subscribe to the fact that we have people who think in such an evil way. You may well say, Keith, you're wrong. Keith, you're naive. But that's my opt out, if you like.
Watched a very good film last night. Treated myself to a film. Normally, can't spend the time in a Schindler's List. Did you ever?
Oh
see
yes,
that?
it's a wonderful movie. A wonderful movie indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, I must read more up on Oscar Schindler because it struck me as quite an incredible human being.
Well, he must have been a very brave man because
Very, but the
yeah.
manipulation he did with those guys.
Yeah.
Oh, it was brilliant.
It's-
Reminded me a little bit of Donald Trump. Tell you, no.
All right. Well, we've had an interesting morning again, and it's been an interesting week. We continue to have. We had a wonderful young man from the Roundtree Foundation the other morning who is an expert on poverty, and he
Really?
yes, and he gave a very articulate a view of the devastation that poverty can impose.
And it can happen overnight.
Yes, and the other thing is that he also, a bit like you, it took the view. What society does is it gets very complacent, and it changes the level of what is poverty and what's not. So this year, this is what poverty is, and the next year it's been watered down, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we've had an interesting week, and we are going to be back tomorrow. We will be back tomorrow, and I think that we've got an interesting gentleman, and let me see. Let's see if I can just find his name here. Sorry, give me just half a second to find him, because we are going to undertake a very interesting experiment tomorrow, and it may be that people will want to tune in to see how it goes. But I think it's Malcolm Gaskill.
Can I help?
Yes, he is. He's a professor of early modern history and an expert on witch hunting, and particularly focusing on the Massachusetts witch hunts.
Wow, I bet he's a very interesting man.
Yes, and we are because you wouldn't think it sometimes with the way that we flail around with this technology, but we are all very experienced journalists and broadcasters and so on Mirador. We are very lucky to have a very high standard of it. And so tomorrow is Melissa Conti, who is an award-winning journalist in the States and part of our team. She's going to do the interview.
Oh, that's
and
very
she's going
good.
to do it from New York.
Excellent.
So
I'm sure she'll do a very good job.
Yes, and so it's an interesting way for us to experiment a little. Yeah. So that's what you've got for tomorrow. Apart from me burbling on first thing in the morning, is don't pay too much attention to what I have to say very early on, simply because I'm normally asleep, and actually this. Nobody knows, but Liza comes in and doesn't tell anybody, and then she's got a little thing up the back of my shirt, and she goes like that. My mouth moves. Anyway, she'll be pulling the strings tomorrow morning while my mouth moves. Look forward to seeing you then at 8:30 when we start, and we will be going through to just about this time. Again, incidentally, as I thought that we've got the the temperature there, and we haven't. They've changed it. There's a little thing down at the bottom of the screen which gives us information, but they keep changing it. So we won't even bother to tell you, but that it's now
The sun
quite
shining
sunshiny
out
outside,
looks very
reflecting
pretty.
off the courthouse, and it's not a bad day, not a bad day at all.
It's a lovely day.
So a lovely day for what's the phrase? A lovely day for something that.
Ducks. That's if it's raining, though, isn't it?
Yes. We'll see you tomorrow. Tiddle pip.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning in.